In the Elder Scrolls games, there are many recurring themes, but a prominent and common theme is the idea of good versus evil. This theme has a presence in every single Elder Scrolls storyline, and there are certain things that the player can associate with both good and evil within the Elder Scrolls universe. The Daedra, for example, are widely considered to be evil, and it has been the endeavour of many a Daedric prince to conquer or destroy Tamriel. Equally, the Aedra are thought by many Tamrielic inhabitants to be paragons of virtue and fundamental goodness that directly contrasts with the ethos of the Daedra. But are the Aedra good? Are they the holy, divine beings that everyone seems to think they are? And are they even real, living gods? To answer these questions, we're going to have to recount the tale of how the Aedra originally came to be on Mundus. The idea of Mundus was originally conceptualized by an Aedra called Lorcan, but the creation of Mundus would require a vast amount of power, and so Lorcan was assisted by a host of other beings called the Aedra in the creation of his world. Chief among these beings was Magnus, who became the architect and drew up the plans for Mundus. As the plans progressed and the creation of Lorcan's world neared completion, many Aedra began having certain misgivings, however. It was becoming abundantly clear to them that Mundus would require so much power to complete that they would have to give up parts of themselves in order to fuel its creation. Many Aedra cursed Lorcan for his treachery in failing to tell them that they would need to sacrifice their own power, and Magnus and various other smaller beings fled Mundus and inadvertently created the sun and stars during their escape. However, some Aedra stayed behind and fueled Mundus's creation, and these entities fell into two distinct groups. Some of the Aedra gave only parts of themselves to the creation of Mundus. These became the 8 planets of Mundus, and they were also identified as the 8 divines, or Aedra. Some Aedra gave themselves completely to their creation though, and became the Earthbones or Elnathe. They formed the substance and life of the final planet, Nirn. Some Elnathe would live on as spirits, however, and become the progenitors to men and Mer. The two distinct groups of Aedra involved in Mundus's creation then are the Aedra who invested part of their being into the world's creation and became the planets of Mundus, commonly referred to as the 8 divines, and the Aedra who gave up their entire being to make Nirn and Mundus a reality, the Earthbones or Elnathe, and many Elnathe became fundamental aspects of nature. We're going to be focusing on the 8 divines for the purposes of this video, since it is these Aedra who are most commonly worshipped by man and Mer alike. The fact that thousands upon thousands of people across Tamriel worship the divines should be a sure indicator that the divines are intrinsically good. The divines represent such things as love, compassion, beauty, and arguably all these traits are what make life worth living. When a denizen of Nirn experiences those things, they are feeling a part of the divines, which, understandably, makes them worthy of worship in their followers' eyes. But there seems to be a major flaw with worshipping the divines. Their lack of communication with the mortals of Tamriel suggests an air of indifference that they simply don't care about their worshippers' fates, but there's a completely valid reason as to why the Aedra aren't nearly as active with mortals as, say, the Daedra are. Fundamentally, what it comes down to is that the 8 divines invested so much of their own being and power into the world that they are shadows of their former glory. This means that they are mostly unable to directly interact with the world they have created. Instead, the divines tend to use avatars or visions to confer their will, as opposed to actually appearing in their true form. So in answer to the question, are the Aedra good? The answer must be wholeheartedly yes for the people of Tamriel, since without the likes of Magnus, the 8 divines, and the Earthbones, Nirn wouldn't exist at all. But the Aedra are in effect half dead. They no longer wield true power of their own like the Daedra, which means the Aedra are not so much gods as they are simple spheres of influence such as love, beauty, life, and law. It is clear then that the 8 divines are intrinsically good. They gave up the majority of their power and being to create the world and universe. Furthermore, it's shown that the divines are still interested in protecting the sanctity of life and creation in the present day. Throughout the ages, the divines have imbued various champions with power to overcome some form of evil. A famous example could be Martin Septim. Martin Septim was imbued with the power of Akatosh when facing Mehrunes Dagon, and became Akatosh's avatar. For all intents and purposes, he was, at that moment, Akatosh. The fact that an Aedra went to such an effort to protect the mortal plane of existence certainly suggests that the Aedra are virtuous. Many men and Mer can agree that the 8 divines are beings worthy of worship, but there is one serious way in which the elves, in particular the Altmer, differ with men in their worship of the Aedra. This concerns Lorcan. Lorcan is one of the only 2 Aedra, the other being Akatosh, to appear in every known mythology on Nirn. However, opinions of him vary dramatically from race to race. Generally speaking, Lorcan is considered an enemy of the Mer and a patron and hero to men. In Mer mythology, mythology, Lorcan is called the Trickster, and the Mer do not look kindly on him at all. They blame Lorcan for tricking the other Aedra into giving up their divinity. This includes those who would become the Elna Fae, and thus the Altmer, who now blame Lorcan directly for their mortality. The Dunmer have a less venomous view of Lorcan than their Altmeri cousins, since they believe that their mortality is a test of their strength, and that they are ultimately destined to shed their mortality. Lorcan is simply one of the obstacles the Dunmer have to overcome. Men, unlike the elves, do not believe themselves to be descended from the Aedra. They believe themselves to be created from nothing by Lorcan, and thus they owe their entire existence to him. Even though a man's life might span a mere 70 years, without Lorcan, men would not have even that small amount of time to spend on Nirn. In their opinion, Lorcan is the hero of mankind, and they object to his mistreatment by other races. So evidently there are differing opinions on the Aedra Lorcan. On the one hand, without Lorcan, Mundus wouldn't exist at all. However, equally, Lorcan's so-called trickery ensured that many Et'Ada would lose their immortality with the creation of his world. There is also one more fact which is interesting to consider. After the initial creation of Mundus, in its very early stages, the Aedra murdered Lorcan for tricking them. It seemed that whilst they did give their life force to bring the world into being, they weren't entirely happy about the ordeal. This could suggest that, given the chance, the 8 divines would never have participated in Mundus's creation in the first place, knowing the end result. So, whilst the 8 divines can and do represent the fundamental goodness of the world for many mortals today, you can't forget that they might not have been part of the world, knowing the end result. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to learn more about the world of the Elder Scrolls, then feel free to check out the other videos on my channel. If you want to interact with me directly, then feel free to join my Discord, the link is in the description.